Hey guys, Warren here from Assay. Just wanted to do a little video and start a series kind of breaking down my writing, possibly recording and editing process for Assay's music. I want to kind of show you how I decide to write stuff, what I kind of do to bring about all the instrumentation. And today I figured we'd start with my song "Where Is No Further" from Opus Quest. If you don't remember, it's this one here. So I'm going to go through a couple different parts. On this particular video, I want to focus solely on drum instrumentation, how I put together those drum beats, whatnot. So as you can see, I've got, of course, right here my audio I just played for you. That's the finalized wave track after recording, mixing, mastering, editing, etc. And then I've got down here some MIDI and wave tracks that these are where all the music starts to happen. Even these wave tracks are either recordings or were used in a software, and I bounced over to this particular project. This project is kind of my songwriting project for Where Is No Further. I've got all my instruments here. This is kind of how I work. I literally, it's almost like scoring music to me. I write out the instrumentation for everything. Even the vocal parts, a lot of times I just use a little E-piano just to give myself reference and an idea of where it's going to go. Bass, guitars, synth instruments, stuff like that. A lot of these are later taken and fine-tuned and actually used in the final project. For instance, these sounds here. So anyway, let's get straight to the drums. We can break all that down another time. This part here, the other thing is, just to clarify, all that you're going to hear is not mixed, mastered. It's very rough levels put together just for my personal reference. So it's not going to sound pretty compared to this. Here's the mixed, mastered audio. Here's my MIDI. And what you'll notice is basically all the instrumentation that I would record, guitars, bass, drums, it's nearly exactly the same. That's because I craft this stuff very meticulously. So let's start here. After the orchestra instruments come out, we go straight into a little drum fill to open it up. That drum fill is the exact same. That's how meticulous I can be with this stuff. Now, there are a lot of fills in the recording process and whatnot, or ideas that come out in the recording process that are not going to be, what I originally wrote. There is definitely room for, improving upon that stuff or adding life to it in the moment. But for the most part, it's very much like scoring. I go in there, learn all the parts that I wrote, and record them. So, drum section here, as you can tell, if you're looking up here, I'm alternating time signatures. It's basically going to repeat a 4-measure sequence at 17, 16ths, 18s, 17s, and 22s. Just the kit by itself, that's going to sound like this. And as you can see there, if you write in Logic, this is just basically where I dragged out that MIDI, that pattern repeats. So 17, 18, 17, 22, 16ths. I'll show you kind of an up close and personal piano roll here. Sometimes I write it out in sheet music. Drums tend to be easier, I think, with the piano roll. It kind of breaks down better in my mind, at least. And you'll notice I have very basic and consistent velocities here. That's what these colors represent. So if it's green, it's a bit softer. Yellow's a bit heavier. Red is super intense. Now, this is obviously not because I played it necessarily this way. It's just kind of a basic way that it sounded decent when I was writing it, so that I could hear an idea of what I'm going for. So again, we have our little fill that starts it. You know, just snare and hat to a kick, and then crashing out into a little snare roll. And then into my 17s, 18s, 17s, 16s. So I wanted to create kind of some musical tension with this song. The song has a lot to do with personal tension. And so there's a lot of moments that this song builds on that tension in different ways. And in particular, this drum pattern was really kind of, in the music itself, I really wanted to create like a cyclical feel, something that feels like it's going around and around, that there's a tension, not a necessarily negative tension, but just something really driving. And so I feel like I did pretty good at creating that. So in a 16th beat, you're usually going to have more of a straight feel, you know, like a 4/4, kick, snare, as opposed to like a, you know, 3/4, kick, snare. But I kind of wanted to combine accents of that in this particular beat. So you have, if you're following along here, these are riding every 2, but you have these accents that are popping up every 3. Kick, hat, kick, snare, kick. Nothing in this particular one. I accent it more on the downbeat here. And I break it up a bunch, but you'll see that kind of pattern following pretty consistently. So again, kick, hat, kick, snare here. So kick, hat, snare. I start to follow that pattern quite a bit. So basically what I've got there is my ride is carrying most of the beat. The kick is following nearly every 6 or 5, depending on where it's at. Or in this segment, actually, it's just every 6 or 5. So I'm breaking it up in halves here while still maintaining that we're on an even count when I'm closing that hat there. And then using that snare to accent right before we come back on that kick, which is where the rest of these instruments kind of shift. Let's look at the bass. I'm going to move this up here. The bass is really following a pattern with the drums to bring more accent to where I want, you know, those kind of big chord shifts. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that on for now. So walking through this again. And I really liked, a lot of times with a beat, I'll try to create a theme that creates more than just a beat, but something about the drums in particular that sticks out there. Something that's speaking, as opposed to just carrying, you know, a rhythmic roll. It's, you know, it's got a voice in the mix of the music. So a lot of these accents do that are kind of off time. But using this high tom here for those double hits towards the end of, or the latter half of each sequence was something I used to really bring out the drums in the mix, keep them there, keep attention pulling that way, because there's a lot of instrumentation here. So I wanted attention to be frequently pulled in kind of different places. So, and you see with that 22/16, I just needed a little extra something to change it up, keep it feeling cyclical, not like it's falling into an actual groove. And with the guitar part here, that part that was delayed, that part kind of keeps it just jumps out for that segment there. So that's really what that was for, was to bring out that guitar part and keep the beat rotating in a way that doesn't feel like it settles. So I'm going to play it all the way through 2 times. Here's that 22. And then repeats. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move on here to the end of this sequence. So, I come to the end of this last one, and I have a fill segment. Just a sequence that helps transition it into the next part. A lot of times I don't necessarily like to just crash out straight at the end of a segment. I don't like to make real clean cuts all the time. Sometimes I do. With this music in particular, it's a very progressive feel, so I really wanted to, even in the transitions between segments, and we're about to go into the verse here, and we'll look at the drum segment of that too. I wanted something that really brought the drums out in a powerful feel. I wanted a good drum fill here, a good, powerful segment of hits that all the instrumentation could follow along with, and the vocals are introduced in this segment here too. In fact, the vocal line I wrote, I changed in the studio. I literally only kept the lead vocal. It was too much with the instruments there for those harmony parts I wanted to do. For where is the end is what the word says. It says it. Where is the end? So here I just basically kept where's the end, that part. So a lot going on here to transition it into a much softer part of the song. I'm going to go ahead and give you, and notice that 22 count here, I changed to 24. I added just a little pause. I wanted to break it and then slam it right back into something. So I'm going to actually give a listen to the audio here. And if you can't tell, even those fills, I recorded exactly the same as I wrote. Again, it's a transitionary fill, so it's not like a fun fill per se, just something I wanted to throw out there and show off some skill. It was actually something that was intended for assisting that transition into the next music. So again, we have, I'm going to start back here, the latter half of the last segment. And you'll see the stop here. That's where I have it really soften out. I have the acoustic come in. I used a nylon string MIDI. I did not use that in the recording. I used an actual steel string acoustic guitar. So in this part, it's real soft, real gentle. I basically showcase vocals and acoustic, and then piano. This part, if my voice were to fade, if my eyes would dim, this is all like really somber. This is a somber moment for the song. Not that the song itself is meant to be somber entirely, but the introduction here, where is the end? If my voice were to fade, if my eyes would dim, is this the end? It's kind of meeting that the end of myself, my limits, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So I wanted to kind of create that meditative moment where these are the thoughts I'm dwelling on here, and so the music really strips down. You can see how I map out the vocals. Now right here, we drop to 4/4, okay? So acoustic guitar is in 4/4, piano is in 4/4, vocals are in 4/4. So that's kind of the start of the phrase. And you'll hear that repeat. You can see it here. That part, the guitar part, the piano part, it's over here. Where's our piano? There it is. That all repeats, that whole segment, along with the vocals. So there's some change up in the vocals. The only difference is we introduce a couple of different instruments and a couple of background vocal parts. So here, you're not really hearing that because in the MIDI I quieted down. I added a couple of different effects. You can actually see it there. That's the volume levels. I dropped them out there because in the recording I wanted to create a different feel for that part. So it's a little dropped out there in the recording, but instead of being dropped out that much, there's a bit more reverb on it, a bit more high-end distance. So it makes it feel further away for the toms. Before the rest of the drums come in here. Now, what I really enjoyed about this part was I created that somber tension here, but that tension is growing. We're asking the same question here. It just repeats: if my voice were to fade, if my eyes would dim, is that the end? And the question goes from where is the end here to is this the end, towards the end of the verse here into our chorus, which we're not going to get into today, but there's a transition of where is the end to is this the end, so it conveys a heightened tension there. And so even though the guitar and piano are repeating, so we come over here, same part for the piano, where the guitar, they trade off spots there in both segments. Now we have this instrument, more of a background pad. We have this going in the background. Now, that part is going to grow. It's going to open up the filter towards the end there and increase in volume a bit. This pattern is not following a 4/4 pattern. It's following the drums. And the drums following an 11/16 pattern. What that looks like is you have 11 counts, and each ride hit is counting 11 counts. So what that looks like is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Or you could count 6 and 6 beats of half of that starting midway through the 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. So that beat, along with this synth, see, those fit really nicely together, and I crafted them in a way that they would sync up later where I really need them to transition into the next part. I wanted that tension. I wanted those beats to stand out. I wanted them to really accent this synth lead, because there's some emotional driving there, and the result, when it all comes together, I'll play from the 4 counts beforehand. So you hear the guitar in the background, the vocals singing the same part, 4/4. But I crafted this beat in a way that even though it's in a different time signature, technically, it still fits with the hits in some way that accents, where it just brings out enough, but brings it back in pretty quick. So for instance, here's the beginning of your 4/4. We have these tiny, really offbeat hat hits, and then on the second beat of this 4/4 measure, I've already got that locked in to an even spot. So it's either basically going to be switching up whether the snare or the hat takes on the 4/4 roll. So it helps keep it from branching out too far, even though it's a totally different time signature. It keeps it locked in, and the result, of course, in the actual audio. Where is the air? It works. I love this part. It's one of my favorite parts of the album, actually. A little bit more on this. You could tell these hat hits, they're just really wonky. They basically are falling right in between 2 ride hits. So if you're a drummer, you can also see that these are coming right before a kick each time. In between kicks there. So kick and ride are together on those 2 hits. And that hat is right in between. It just adds a nice flavor, because you've got those high frequencies, and you know, when somebody's listening to it, it's also going to be stereo. So you have your ride. I'm not one of those people that if you pay attention to how some people mix, drums will sometimes be kind of as if the audience is looking at the drummer. So a typical right-handed drummer, the ride is going to be on the right, the ride is going to be on the left, as if you're looking at the drummer. The hat is going to be on the right. I don't like that. I much more prefer, as a musician myself, when I'm hearing music, it throws me off. So I much prefer to have it as if I'm sitting behind the drum kit. So in my mix, ride is on the right, hat is on the left. So when you're playing, you know, you've got kind of this nice washy stuff over the acoustic guitar and the piano, along with your pad that's going and your synth. These super high frequencies from the ride and hat add a nice flavor, especially since they're kind of alternating, where they're at in your ears. It really mixes it up. Again, it keeps your attention there. Not enough to say, hey, look at me, it's all drums. You've got a real simple, kind of catchy guitar line. You've got background vocals, main vocals. So it's all still kind of, in a way, fighting for your attention, but also very pleasantly giving you the attention you need. And we'll wrap it up here at the end, going into the chorus. We'll go into the transition for that. So my drum beat here, I'll show you that last bit. So the guitar is still here and the piano comes in now. You can hear that synth filter opening. So basically all that's happening there is the drums continue their segment. I even wrote it out in the MIDI. Again, green is mid velocity, red is going to be pretty high. So you could see here in this little segment, I am increasing the velocity that I'm hitting the drums in the recording. Along with I've got the pad here opening up. You can tell it's a bit more open there. I've got the pad opening up and the filter of the pad opening up. I've got the filter of my synth lead here opening up. So that all kind of creates a flowering effect, a blooming effect, so to speak. Really helps build that tension. The vocals are even, I've got written here one solid note, but in the recording I I hold out that note, put some grit into it. All of that is to really transition into a gigantic smack for the chorus. And of course I return back to a similar beat from where I first introduced the drums for the verse. I can show you this one. So, there you have it. I would love to hear your questions, your comments. Again, this video is just basically me breaking down a little bit of my writing process, how I write stuff. This was focused basically entirely on drums in two sections of my song, Where Is No Further. It's the final track on the Opus Quest EP. You can hear the full song on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon MP3, Google Play, whatever you listen to, Tidal, Pandora. It's on Pandora too. So should be on Pandora now. It takes a little while. Just released this past Friday. So anyway, you can check it out. Follow Assay on Spotify. Like Assay's page on Facebook. Visit assaymusic.com. I'm going to be doing more of these videos, breaking down each of these songs, different aspects of them, showing you, again, my writing process, maybe even some of the recording process. And just so you know, I do play all of the instruments that you're hearing as far as guitars, bass, drums, keys, vocals. I write them all out here, and then I go and record them in the studio. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. and enjoy Opus Quest.